sometimes when we get down the line and you're getting to that procurement stage and like you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to delay my deal. If they find out we're transactable in Marketplace and like maybe our competitor isn't, they're like, oh, we're definitely doing that. Yeah. And I know how to do that. We can do that in like 15 minutes. So we're doing that. And so that's been pretty interesting and pretty powerful, actually.
Hey everyone, Chip Rodgers. We're back for another episode of Inside Partnering, and gosh, I'm so excited to be talking to John Breul. John, welcome.
Thanks. Hey, thanks for having me, Chip.
Yeah, so John is Vice President of Global Software Alliances for FloQast, and FloQast has been just terrific, great, a lot of growth. You're 800 plus employees and global company, and your background is a number of technology companies going back to, I think, BMC early days.
Way back, yeah, BMC. Back
Workday and Financial Force.
Yeah.
And always in partnerships and working with partners. So just really excited to have you join, John.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. And lots of partner experience to talk about. I started my career in sales, actually. But that whole string you just listed was all the partner world.
Yeah, that's terrific. So tell me a little bit about your role at FloQast. Let's start there. What is it that you're focusing on, and what are some of your initiatives going on these days?
Yeah, so at FloQast I lead, like my title indicates, the Software Technology Alliances team, and that really is the partners that we work with in three main buckets. It's the other fintech ISVs that are complementary to FloQast. We're an accounting transformation platform that helps our companies, the accounting teams at our companies, basically streamline their core processes like close and compliance, and now a lot of things that they're doing with AI to automate some of that reconciliation. And so when you think about that, there's a group of ISVs that we partner with around that, and we can kind of streamline their processes by having better integrations and just a better better together story there. We also work with the ERPs. We integrate with all of the kind of big ERPs. So you think about the SAP, Microsoft, Sage Intacct, Workday, some of the even more like industry-specific ones like Yardi and Deltek. And then also we have a relationship with AWS and the Hyperscaler Marketplace side.
Yeah. So those three sort of pillars of. So let's start. I want to dive into the ERP folks, but let's start first with some of the technology, complementary technology partners. Talk about that. What does that look like? Are you doing integrations with them, I would assume, and then do you also do the whole go-to-market with them as well? Or?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of it's interesting because there's a lot of change happening in that space right now. So we have some traditional. When I say traditional, we're not that old of a company, but we have some relationships that have been going on for a few years that are more in the traditional direct integration. Like we have a great partnership with a company called DFIN, which does about 70% of the public filings, SEC statutory reporting. Pretty logical connection between what we do and they do. They're going in, companies are trying to get ready to go public. They got a mess in their accounting department. We can help them clean up, vice versa. If they've got FloQast in place, but they need help on the statutory reporting because it's a required part of going public, we can recommend them. And we've traditionally just had a referral relationship with them. We're currently announcing some really exciting stuff on the integration side, so that's pretty cool. But like what's one of the biggest changes we've had with that group lately is we have a new platform called Transform. And Transform is essentially a builder platform for our customers to be able to, a non-technical user, to be able to basically build an agent that automates a lot of the core accounting processes.
Love it.
And in that process, that kind of has changed the dynamic in how we're partnering with some of these ISVs that are in that fintech stack. Because in the past, we would kind of do point-to-point API integrations or basically just do flat file, like batch processing. But today, if we can connect to them and like share both ways, the data that we're handling and really the metadata and everything else around it, then AI can take advantage of that. And we're finding that to be just a really interesting new angle, and we're just honestly kind of trying to still figure out exactly what are those implications. It makes our integrations a lot cooler and more flexible, but like, what does that mean as far as like where the value is and like how the customer kind of like interacts with those integrations? It's kind of a work in progress, but we're excited about it.
Yeah, well, you and everybody else, right? Yeah. We're all trying to figure out what are the how can you're only limited by your imagination, right?
Yeah, exactly right. And then just even like talking to our sales teams and go to market teams about like how do we talk about the integration together? Like, I mean, it's just changing the language, and I think right now there's so much excitement, especially maybe not especially, but accounting. I don't know if there's actually studies about this. Accountants are like some of the most stressed out people about AI. Like literally, like because they don't know how much of their work's going to get automated. They don't know how it's going to change their jobs. So right now we all are trying to like get them comfortable that it's going to be a good thing. And so that part's easy. Some of the more like kind of down in the weeds stuff we're still figuring out.
I assume also hallucinations are not a good thing when you're trying to do gap accounting, right?
Yeah, no, and FloQast has like really done a nice job of like we're one of the only companies out there that's ISO 42001 certified, which basically kind of addresses a lot of that stuff. You have to actually build into the way you're developing product, like mitigating for hallucinations. I mean, as you can imagine, auditing is a big deal in the accounting world, and you cannot have changing data in the background. So there's a lot of rigor that goes into that on our side. In some ways, that actually helps us with some of our other partners, honestly, because if we can take in their data and ensure that it meets those standards, we can actually take some of that risk off of their plate. And our customers have actually kind of really globbed onto that, like, okay, that makes me feel good. I can feel good that FloQast is taking a look at this before I'm actually posting it to my GL or presenting it to my auditor. And it's actually been a huge part of how we got in traction early on here.
Well, I really wanted to get into AI and talk about how it's impacting, how you guys are taking advantage of it, both from a product standpoint. So you just talked about the AI agent integration, and then also even in your sort of day to day as the partner team, working with AI. Where are you at these days?
Well, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that second thing, because just this morning on my team call, we were doing a little AI practice/play, because one of the things that we've always, anybody that's been in the partner world for a while, you struggle with like, okay, you partner with someone, but they're trying to sell their own stuff. Their customers need to hear about you, but like, how do you make it really easy for like their sales organization to talk about your solution? It's a challenge, right? Because you don't know their stuff that well, they don't know your stuff that well. But like one of the things we found that's been really effective, like probably 10x the effective rate I've seen in my career, is like we've gotten really good at building, like as in the royal we've gotten really good at building out these like very specific prompts, talking about like why a customer, say for example, I mentioned DFIN. We were just talking about this one today. Like, how do you set up a prompt that makes it highly likely that a DFIN customer would want to hear about FloQast? And there's all these things about like what's been changing in their leadership, like how many accountants do they have on their team, like what are some challenges that they've had around an audit or whatever, and you can really put all that into a very targeted prompt and even push it at a very specific, like for example, the customers that we know are mutual customers, or the customers that we know of theirs that are hot prospects for us, and we can make a very, very specific, very compelling ask, actually, and basically tee up the seller on the partner side to just basically send it. And you can actually even prompt it to fill in the email template for them and just say, hey, you could copy and paste this and send this to these 3 people, which we also identified by AI. And I mean, our hit rates, like I said, I haven't, this is not scientific, but like back of the napkin, just from we've been doing this for maybe a month or two. I mean, I'm seeing like response rates that are like literally like 10x what I would expect.
Wow.
From the past, just because it's just
very tailored, very specific.
It helps us really target, and it helps us be very tailored. And it's the kind of thing that, like, I mean, I know because I've sat in the alliance manager seat for a lot of years. Tailoring those kind of messages, 2-3 of those a day would take you a lot of calories and a lot of time. I mean, we can crank out, I don't know, like 100 in 5 minutes. Like, so it's pretty crazy. So that part has been a huge impact on just a very tactical but very practical level for us. I think on some of the other stuff, it's just, just kind of having a thesis around who we should be partnering with. I tinker around with that quite a bit. Like as a leader on the team, I think about like, hey, strategically, like this is where we're trying to go. Here's the audience we're trying to get to. Like you can get some pretty cool responses from, we use personally at FloQast, we have a contract with Gemini, but like Gemini Pro or whatever. But like, ChatGPT, the others, they all kind of, they can offer a lot of the same kind of responses, but I think it's actually really helping even like just be more efficient about thinking through strategy even. So I think that you kind of like selfishly, like how we use it on our team, those are some of the key ways. I mean, like I mentioned before, we have a partnership with AWS, and there's some pretty interesting things. You can get some good tailwinds with like some of these hyperscalers around AI if you're kind of pushing the message with them and showing use cases, and they don't know how to talk to the Office of Finance. We do, but we have these Office of Finance applications of AI. Oh, by the way, they're powered by, whatever, Bedrock or, in our case, that's what we talk about. But so those are some of the kind of the go-to-market stuff. And then, the other thing is some of the companies we partner with are not as agile, not as forward-thinking, and we can kind of put an AI sheen on their story. So we've been leveraging that a little bit too.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, that's terrific. So a lot of AI, both with partners and customers, and even internally. So that's it's fantastic. I love the use case. That's really cool. Yeah. Let's talk a little. So you just mentioned working with AWS, going to market with AWS and co-selling. How is that process working? How's it going? How are you finding? And I think you already touched on some of the key elements, which is, hey, we're really deep on this vertical, and we can really help. So tell me about it.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we launched the AWS partnership a year and a half ago, basically. It was in response to some feedback, both from kind of like our peers and from board members and just the market in general. A lot of what we kind of like, our thesis going into it, I would say like most of it has actually panned out and some of it has not. So, one of the things that you were definitely seeing is like acquiring software like ours on a marketplace like AWS Marketplace is a mega trend. There are definitely, as you can imagine, accounting is a very horizontal function. So we can technically, I guess, or whatever, functionally sell to just about anybody. But historically, we have done really well in like high growth, high tech, biotech, like high growth companies who are like dealing with a lot of complexity in their accounting. Those folks oftentimes will also have kind of a bias to like doing a lot with a hyperscaler. In our case, we're only on AWS, so we just are on the AWS Marketplace, but our experience is because of that, whether they're another software company or maybe they're a high growth biotech or whatever, they'll have like spend commitments with the hyperscaler. That gives
free money.
Yeah, I mean that was the dream that we were sold. It hasn't turned out to be quite that straightforward, but it can be a very big factor. Where we've actually seen the bigger effect is on renewals. Like a lot of our customers that have been long-time customers, they just like have now ported their subscription onto their marketplace, and they've done that because they want to take advantage of that, spend, commit, burn down, and we've definitely seen real, like, I would say, like, removal of friction on renewals. Once they get going on that, it's just kind of like renewing, like we renew our cable bill or whatever. Like it just is on there, right? Like, and so they just kind of keep going through it. And there's benefits to actually. There's a kind of a word counterintuitive, counterintuitive incentive to like not necessarily negotiate, because if they're coming up a little short in their spend commit, they kind of want to put more money in there because the consequences for not hitting a spend commit are worse than what they get if they don't hit it. So I think that's some of the stuff we've seen. I think that some of the challenge stuff we've seen is, I think this would probably be true of any hyperscaler, but in the case of AWS, their primary buyer is the dev side, IT. We don't sell to IT. Our motto is built by accountants for accountants, and one of the big reasons we've gotten a lot of traction is our solution is basically implementable by accountants. And so they don't necessarily ever have to talk to IT. So those two groups don't necessarily meet. So it's been a little bit of an interesting thing to like think about, like, where do we intersect with AWS? And actually one of the areas we found that's pretty interesting is we do meet, especially in larger organizations, we meet at procurement. Because procurement knows about the spend commit. They know about Marketplace. They've usually have done lots of Marketplace transactions before. And when they find out, like, this is like the kind of opposite of what your normal experience with procurement is like, sometimes when we get down the line and you're getting to that procurement stage and like you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to delay my deal. If they find out we're transactable in Marketplace and like maybe our competitor isn't, they're like, oh, we're definitely doing that. Yeah. And I know how to do that. We can do that in like 15 minutes. So we're doing that. And so that's been pretty interesting and pretty powerful, actually.
Well, that's amazing. So I think there's some folks at AWS like Chris Cruz and Matt Y who would really like to hear that story.
Yeah, I'm sure they would. Okay, so since if you're gonna pass this along to them, so here's our challenge, and I've even shared this like at AWS events, like with their leadership team, et cetera. In fact, Chris, I think, was in this meeting. Is like they were just asking, like, what are your biggest challenges? Well, there's not a Office of Finance line of business sales motion at AWS. So finding a way for an AWS seller to logically bring up FloQast to somebody who actually would care is a big challenge. Well, yeah, we talked about we kind of meet at procurement, but that's kind of after we've done all the legwork. So
with the business side.
Yeah. We have not really cracked the code yet on like how do we get co-sell help on the business side. And, I think AWS actually, it's on their radar. They kind of talk about it a lot. Like they want to have a line of business focus. They don't have it right now. And so we're trying to, we're a tiny fish in a ginormous pond, but we're trying to encourage them to have more of a line of business focus. And if they do, then I think it'll make it a lot easier to unlock that part of the co-sell value.
Well, and I suspect there are a lot of folks that are at AWS in the field that have that experience. They're just not aligned that way.
Yeah, that's right. And, one of the areas we are seeing some traction is they have put a lot more focus on industry. And so we've got a couple of competencies. We've got a competency in retail. We've got a competency in SMB. We're hoping to have a Gen I competency later. That's going to give us some traction. But like our sweet spot's line of business, so it would be awesome if they would actually focus on that.
Yeah, that's terrific. So we've talked about the technology partners, cloud providers, AWS. How about the ERP vendors? I know a lot of your business is with NetSuite, but across all of them, right? SAP and Sage and all of them.
Yeah.
Talk about those partnerships.
Yeah, it's interesting because the two things that FloQast kind of anchors between is the GL, which is the ERP, and whatever kind of cloud storage system a company has. So those are the two things that are like kind of have to integrate with every single customer. And then kind of what we do is we help basically reconcile what the accountants are doing day to day, usually in some form of a spreadsheet with their GL and making sure that all ties off and everything else. So we have to have a really close and strong technical relationship with those partners. Mm-hmm. And historically, with some of them, we've had a pretty good go-to-market relationship. I'd say, to be fair, a lot of those ERPs have developed more capability in our area. And so it's a little bit interesting to try to like navigate that with their sales teams because they've got kind of something in their bag that's a bit overlappy with what we do. It hasn't really slowed down our momentum with our customers much. Without disparaging anyone, I would just say that like our whole mantra of being like built by accountants for accountants really works. Like when your focus is not accounting software and you're just building functionality for accounting software, you just have a different approach. And I think we continue to, it hasn't really slowed our momentum down. But from a partnering side, we mainly partner with them on the technology side because it's kind of complicated to put together like an easy and digestible, like better together story with some of them. But yeah, we do have relationships with them. We have, we'll be at Suite World next week, 2 weeks. It's the biggest event of the year. We got 1,500 customers that'll probably be there. And yeah, so it's still a very, very important relationship for us, but more on kind of like the technical partnership side rather than the go-to-market.
Yeah. Interesting. So talk a little bit about, John, how are you and your team measured? What are the goals that you're looking at? How are you tracking that? And what's a success for you at the end of the year?
Shockingly, we're tracked on sourced revenue. I think pretty much every partner team is. But what's been interesting is, so we have that metric, but we also have some other metrics now. So, for example, with the AWS relationship, because of like the kind of the follow-on benefits, my team gets tracked on how many customers are transacting in the marketplace. So that's a new metric we've added in the last, year and a half. The other thing that we've gotten really focused on, especially in like kind of with our whole push to transform like the agent builder, the AI focus, is how do we leverage our relationship with partners to drive more attachment with our install base and reduce churn? And so that's kind of a metric that's been a big trend in kind of how our value and my team personally is measured on, is like, how do we increase the utility of FloQast, increase the number of connection or integration points to FloQast to make it like more valuable, but also like just harder to get rid of.
Sticky.
Right? Like sticky. So churn is something that we've just started to measure on my team, or like looking at our like looking where are our partners involved and what's the churn rate on those customers versus where they're not involved, and what's the churn rate on those. And it's not, I'm sure, you just read anything like that, we're seeing the same trends everybody else is. Where partners are, where there's more integration points, churn rates just fall off a cliff. And so that's kind of like that net. We'll get more sophisticated on it. Right now, it's like, we're kind of figuring it out, but like that net retained revenue thing is going to become a big part of how we're measured. So I would say that kind of the traditional sourced influence stuff, and then just looking more at like churn reduction, and then now we've got some hyperscaler specific stuff like marketplace transactions.
So maybe final question. I know it's not part of your purview, your domain, but clearly the accounting firms, Deloitte, PwC, those guys globally are doing a lot of business and care about the capabilities that you have. How do those relationships work?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I was actually the first consulting partner guy hired at Workday way back in the day, and so have a lot of experience.
You know the domain.
I know the domain pretty well. But like at FloQast, just over the last year, we've been evolving our partner strategy, where we worked with more kind of like regional boutique folks that we could be subject matter experts, they could implement. And because of our target market has historically been mid-market, that's been kind of who we focused on. In the last year and a half or so, as we've been getting traction up market, we just announced a partnership with PwC about a year ago. We announced a partnership with EY just like a month or so ago. There's a couple of reasons that it makes sense. Like we want them with that like trust air cover that you get from those in like the bigger accounts, and as we move into the enterprise and expand into those accounts that really like where they have really strong relationships, that's important. But there's also a lot that we bring to the table to help them be just more like efficient and I guess maybe modern and forward thinking in their approach. Like the whole way that this whole agent builder thing that I'm talking about, they're embedding that into their practices, right? Like they're going to be able to.
That's terrific.
And they're going to be able to like, realize a lot of the benefit of being leading edge on AI, like driving efficiencies within their finance transformation projects, without having to develop it all in-house and letting us be the subject matter experts there. So I think, going forward, we're super bullish on like, the big four, because built by accountants for accountants resonates with those folks, right? Like that's who we're talking.
We know that world.
They know that world. Like, so it's almost like the opposite side of the coin of AWS, right? Like they know the accounting world. They know that line of business like the back of their hand. And then we're providing more of like, almost like the technical kind of chops or the backup for them, the tools to be able to actually execute on what they can advise on. And so it's a really interesting high growth area for us, and one where, not to discount the whole implementation thing, FloQast is not terribly difficult to implement, but we do have a target of 75% of our implementations going to partners. So there is that bit, but it's really more about how we're empowering their bigger finance transformation projects.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's great. What a great. So not only are they a partner working with customers and additional feet on the street, right? But they're also actually leverage their customer, right? They're leveraging.
Yeah, I mean, and some of the yes, in some cases, like EY is using us in their managed services group, where we're basically powering their managed services group. Yeah, I mean, new stuff happening all the time there that we're figuring out as we go. We're still a pretty relatively young, growing company, so some of this stuff is we're just learning it, but it's exciting for sure. Yeah.
Well, that's a great place to end, John. This has been fantastic. Really appreciate you taking some time and spending time with us and sharing what's going on at FloQast and just partnering in general, because you've been doing it a long time, so you bring a lot of that experience to the table.
Yeah, appreciate the opportunity. Really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, fantastic. So thank you all as well, and we will see you again next time. Thanks, everybody.